So for family, 1,100 families in this community, which is 20% of our workforce, have doubled their family incomes. So, and they're not going anywhere. I mean, the kids are not, now they're working with the high school and the college here, that probably by the end of next year, high school students will be able to graduate with an associate's degree in wind energy when they graduate high school. So, they will have a degree, they'll go into a job that pays $30 an hour, where they're making $50,000, $60,000 a year, straight out of high school with an associate's degree, or they can go to Texas Tech University and become a wind lawyer, or they become a wind public relations agent, a wind artist, they can get a PhD in wind engineering, all those sort of things exist, but, it's fundamental what it does. It's not like, well, we had to have something, so we'll take anything, because we had that before. I mean, communities out here, say the late 1990s, probably for 10 or 15 years before that, your choices were to get a prison. You competed for a prison. And it was the thing here that was, I'm sure the rest of the Great Plains, there were winners and losers. One town got the prison.
Sure.
Everybody wanted the prison. And one town got it, and everybody else lost.
Right.
So it creates more of that antagonism between communities.
Yeah.
Colorado City gets a prison. Snyder gets a prison. We gets a private prison.
Well,
we didn't get a good prison.
So you're saying too about a coal plant or any centralized generation capacity.
Right.
Nothing wrong with it in terms of the in your view and in the local view of energy, but compare it to
Right. And then other communities out here were literally competing for New York City garbage.
Yeah, right.
People competing for nuclear sludge to spread across the pasture land. There's a lot of things that don't look too bad when you're comparing that. Yeah. But wind energy was good in and of itself. Yeah. It doesn't use water. I mean, it's sort of like in West Texas, and I think a lot of the future of the Great Plains with groundwater issues, that you could have invented it. An industry that didn't exist and now employs 20% of the workforce, doubles the wages, brings in new people from around the world to live in your community.
To harvest an abundant free resource.
Yeah, right. It doesn't use water. Yeah, I mean, there were ranchers here who used to say, they bring their bride out here who, eyes got like, oh, where am I? And they'd say, it's not much, but, who knows? If we could just make money off the wind and the rocks, we'd be somebody. 50 years later, before they passed away, they're making money off the wind and the rocks because, you crush up the rock to make the roads for the wind projects, and you make money off the wind, and it was like Perils of Pauline. I mean, it saved the ranch. Because a lot of these communities were really on their way out.
Well, and talk about that a little bit. I love that example, and I think it was interesting, Brienne's comments, and it was interesting when you see these schools that bonded, that maybe 5 years ago or 10 years ago, these are communities where the older members of, any members of that community may have been thinking that you were making fun of them if you asked them what they were going to be in 50 years or 20 years or whatever. And now they're passing 50-year school bonds to help finance new schools.
Right. I mean, what you've got is, even 30, 40 years ago, you had to leave when you graduated. If you weren't going to work at the gas station, it was sort of like young women could work at the bank, young men could go work in the oil field. And otherwise you were sort of at the gas station because there weren't no convenience stores. And so that was your choice, or you left. And you were gone for 40 or 50 years. I mean, you moved to Dallas, San Angelo, Abilene, Lubbock, Houston, Washington, Los Angeles, New York. You moved away. That was your choice. There was no other choice. And even in 2005, I know I came back from New York, and there were like 4 jobs I kind of thought I'd like to have. They were all taken. I mean, it's really since then that there's now 500 jobs that nobody is here to take that are high paying. But these communities out here, probably about 2000, they were all looking forward to these big anniversaries. Towns out here on the Santa Fe Railroad were built in 1907. Towns on the Texas Pacific were built in 1881. So everybody was coming up to 125th anniversary or 100th anniversary. And so if you'd have talked to them, the first wind project came in 2001, but people really didn't get it. It wasn't clear how big it was going to be. So say 2003, they're getting ready for the celebration. And if you'd have said, to Mary Neal or Roscoe, say Mary Neal, whose official slogan is the town that almost died. I mean, it's pretty optimistic. And so they were getting ready for that, almost, that 100-year anniversary. And if you just said to them in 2003, it's like, so are y'all going to make it 200 years? they literally would have thought you were insulting them, that you were mocking them, because their idea was, the kids, and we're talking, Sweetwater was the big school, a couple hundred people per class. You've got these other schools that were 10 or 12 kids per class. Blackwell down here, 6-man football, they couldn't field but 4 boys sometimes. Couldn't even play football anymore. And so there was almost no one in the high school classes. So most people in these communities were sort of in their 80s. And I'm sure the theory was, we are going to get to that. It's like getting to the North Pole and planting the flag. We're going to get to that 100th anniversary. We're going to have a party. And we're going to shut down with pride. The grandkids will then they'll come back. They won't come for the party. They'll come the next week, load me up, and take me to the nursing home. And it'll like scatter like high school kids do at graduation. It would be the final. And
it's
they
always
wouldn't
the
even bother.
inverse. Yeah, it's
Right.
like the
It's
other
not
end of
about turn out the lights. It's just let it all fall down. I mean, literally, that's kind of where we were at the beginning of the century. And then you ask them at those events when they came around in 2007 and 2006. You bet we're going to be here. This town will be here for 300 more years. They'll be talking about, well, the quarry's got enough, material for cement and gypsum for 300 years, so I guess at least 300 years we'll be here. I mean, and, they were saying that while their grandkids are sitting there and the grandkids move back to town.